Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about what it was like to be a spectator at the Roman Colosseum, and let me tell you, it's going to make you real grateful for modern stadium seating. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to ancient Rome, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So congratulations, you just woke up in ancient Rome. It's around 80 CE, just a few years after the massive Flavian amphitheatre, what we now call the Colosseum, was completed under Emperor Titus. The morning sun peeks through the small window of your apartment in one of those rickety, multi-storey buildings the Romans call insulae. The smell of baking bread from the nearby bakery drifts through the air, mixed with the less pleasant smells of a city without modern plumbing. Today's a special day. The Emperor has announced a full day of games at the Colosseum, and you've managed to get your hands on a ticket. Yeah, that's the good news. Admission to the games is free. The bad news? Well, where you sit depends entirely on who you are in Roman society. You roll out of bed, your muscles aching from yesterday's work. The stone floor feels cool against your bare feet as you move toward the small basin of water in the corner to splash your face. Your stomach grumbles. Time for breakfast. Nothing fancy, just some bread dipped in watered-down wine. Maybe an olive or two if you're lucky. Romans aren't big on breakfast. They save their appetite for later in the day. Outside, the city's already buzzing. People are pouring into the streets, all heading in the same direction. The Colosseum isn't hard to find. It's the biggest building in the city, standing about 15 stories tall. As you join the flow of people, you feel the excitement building in your chest. You've heard stories about the incredible spectacles, the exotic animals, the skilled gladiators, the elaborate executions. Today, you'll see it all firsthand. The worn leather of your sandals scrapes against the paved streets as you walk. The crowd grows thicker as you get closer to the amphitheatre. And then, turning a corner, there it is, massive, imposing, made of travertine limestone that gleams golden in the morning light. The Colosseum. Your heart beats a little faster at the sight of it. Approaching the massive structure, you notice the vendors already set up around the perimeter. They're selling everything from snacks to souvenirs. The air fills with their shouts as they compete for customers. Fresh chickpeas, get your chickpeas here. Sausages, hot sausages. Gladiator figures for the children, just like Spartacus. Your mouth waters at the smell of the food. Maybe you'll grab something before finding your seat, but first you need to figure out which entrance to use. The Colosseum has 80 entrances, 76 of them for regular spectators like you. Each entrance is numbered, and you need to find the one that matches the number on your ticket, a small pottery shard with a number scratched into it. People push and shove around you, everyone eager to get inside and claim good seats. The noise is incredible, thousands of conversations happening at once, creating a buzz that you can feel in your chest. Kids dart between adults' legs while soldiers stand guard, keeping an eye out for troublemakers. You finally locate your entrance and join the line. As you inch closer to the archway, you get a better look at the detailed decorations carved into the stone, scenes of battle, of gods and goddesses, of Rome's greatness. Above the entrance, you spot a number engraved in the stone. This is it. The passage into the Colosseum is dark and cool after the bright heat of the morning sun. Your footsteps echo against the stone as you follow the crowd through the vaulted corridor. The scent of sweat and stone and distant animals fills your nostrils. More people press in behind you, their excitement palpable. You're carried along with the flow until you emerge into the sunlight again, and there it is, the arena floor stretched out below, surrounded by row upon row of seats climbing higher and higher. The sight takes your breath away. It's even bigger than you imagined. The oval arena floor is covered with sand, actual sand, not dirt. In fact, that's where the word arena comes from. Harina, the Latin word for sand. It's there to soak up all the blood that will be spilled today. Yeah, not the most comforting thought, but that's Rome for you. Now comes the hard part, finding your seat. If you're a wealthy patrician, you'd be headed down to the front rows. If you're a slave or a woman, you'd be climbing all the way to the top. But let's say you're somewhere in the middle, a free Roman citizen, not rich, but not poor either. That means you're headed for the middle section, what they call the Manianum Primum. You start climbing the stairs, your legs already protesting. No escalators here, friend, just step after stone step. People jostle and push around you, everyone trying to get settled before the games begin. The stone of the steps is worn smooth from countless feet over the years. Finally, you reach your section and find an open spot on the stone bench. Good news, you have about 15 inches of space to sit. Bad news, that's not a lot of room. Your knees almost touch the back of the person in front of you, and you can feel the breath of the person behind you on your neck. Hope you're not claustrophobic. You look around, taking it all in. The Colosseum can hold about 50,000 spectators, and it seems like every seat is filling up, from nobles in their togas near the front to the common folk in simple tunics higher up, to the women and slaves at the very top. The whole of Roman society is here, arranged in neat rings according to status. Above you, sailors are working to unfurl the massive awning called the velarium. It's a remarkable piece of engineering, a huge fabric canopy that can be extended to protect spectators from the sun. The sailors, using their knowledge of ropes and knots, manipulate the massive sheets of fabric until they stretch across portions of the seating area, creating welcome patches of shade. Not everyone gets covered though. The rich folks down front get the most shade, while you and your fellow middle section sitters get partial coverage at best. The heat is already building, and so is the noise. People are shouting to friends, placing bets on the upcoming fights, arguing about which gladiator is the best. Vendors weave through the crowd, still selling their wares, now mostly drinks and snacks. You flag one down and exchange a small coin for a cup of watered wine. It's warm and not particularly good, but it'll help with the thirst. First time? Asks the older man sitting next to you. His skin is weathered from years in the sun, his tunic simple but clean. You nod, taking another sip of your wine. You picked a good day, he says, gesturing toward the arena below. I heard they've got some new beasts from Africa, lions bigger than any you've ever seen. Your stomach tightens a bit at the thought. You've heard stories of the animal hunts, the venaciones, where trained hunters take on exotic animals from the furthest reaches of the empire. It's supposed to be a display of Rome's power, its reach extending to the wildest corners of the known world. And the gladiators, you ask? The man grins, revealing several missing teeth. The best. They're saying Flamma might fight today. Your eyebrows raise. Even you've heard of Flamma, a Syrian gladiator who's won more fights than anyone in recent memory. He's been offered his freedom multiple times but has chosen to continue fighting. The crowd loves him. A trumpet blast cuts through the noise of the crowd, and a hush falls over the Colosseum. All eyes turn to the imperial box where cushioned seats await the emperor and his entourage. Your heart beats faster. You've never seen the emperor in person before. The crowd erupts as a group of richly dressed figures enters the imperial box. At their center is Emperor Titus himself, dressed in purple-edged robes that mark him as Rome's ruler. He raises his hand, and the crowd roars even louder, the sound bouncing off the stone walls and creating a deafening wall of noise. The emperor takes his seat, and another trumpet sounds. The games are about to begin. From beneath the arena floor, a platform rises, carrying the first performers of the day. It's a clever system of pulleys and counterweights that allows people, scenery, and animals to appear as if by magic. The Romans love their special effects. Today, the first event isn't gladiators, but something lighter. Acrobats and jugglers to warm up the crowd. You watch as men flip through the air, form human pyramids, and juggle flaming torches. It's impressive, but you can feel the crowd's restlessness. They didn't come for this. They came for blood. After the acrobats, another trumpet signals the start of the animal hunts. Trapdoors in the arena floor open and exotic animals emerge. Deer and ostriches at first, then wild boars and bulls. Trained hunters, the bestiari, enter the arena armed with spears and bows. The crowd cheers as the hunt begins. You find yourself leaning forward, caught up in the spectacle despite yourself. It's both horrifying and fascinating to watch these wild creatures, many of which you've never seen before, racing around the arena, desperate to escape but finding no exit. The hunters work with practiced precision, bringing down animal after animal. The sand of the arena floor, once golden, is now stained red in places. Slaves rush out between exhibitions to rake it over, hiding the blood before the next show. You take another sip of your wine, which suddenly tastes more bitter than before. As the morning wears on, the heat intensifies, sweat trickles down your back, and you wish you'd brought a fan like some of the wealthier spectators. The man next to you offers you a piece of bread, which you accept gratefully. It's dense and chewy, but it helps with the hunger that's starting to gnaw at your stomach. Wait until midday, he says, tearing off another piece of bread for himself. That's when they do the executions. You swallow hard. You've heard about this part of the games, the damnatio ad bestias, where condemned criminals are thrown to the beasts. It's considered justice in Rome, a public display of what happens to those who defy the empire's laws, but the thought of watching people being torn apart by animals makes your stomach turn. Can't we skip that part, you ask, trying to sound casual. The man looks at you with surprise. Skip it. That's when they bring out the really dangerous beasts, the lions and tigers. It's the best part of the morning. You force a smile and nod, not wanting to seem weak. When in Rome, right? As the last of the hunted animals falls, there's a pause in the action. Slaves enter the arena again, this time to set up elaborate scenery, trees and rocks, and even a small hill. They're creating a landscape for the next exhibition. What's this for? You ask your neighbour. They're recreating the forests of Germania, he explains. They're going to show the recent victory over the barbarian tribes there. Sure enough, once the scenery is in place, two groups of men enter the arena. One group is dressed as Roman legionaries with their distinctive rectangular shields and short swords. The other group wears furs and carries axes and long spears meant to represent the Germanic tribes. It's a reenactment of a recent battle, though you suspect the outcome has been predetermined to favour Rome. The battle commences, and it's clearly choreographed, more like a dance than actual combat. Still, it's impressive to watch, with formations shifting and weapons clashing. The crowd cheers for the Romans and boos the barbarians. When the Roman forces finally surround and defeat their enemies, the crowd erupts in patriotic fervour. Your neighbour elbows you excitedly. See, this is why Rome rules the world. You nod in agreement. It would be unwise to suggest otherwise in this crowd, but privately you wonder about the real battle. Was it this clean, this heroic, or was it messy and terrifying like real combat tends to be? The Romans love their myths, their stories of glory and honour. The truth is often more complicated. As the reenactors leave the arena to applause, you notice the quality of light changing. The sun has reached its zenith and the shadows are shortening. It must be close to midday. Your stomach tightens again. Sure enough, another trumpet blast signals the change in program. The mood in the Colosseum shifts, becoming more tense, more anticipatory. People who had been chatting fall silent. All eyes turn to the arena floor, where the scenery is being cleared away. A procession enters from the main gate, men in chains, guarded by soldiers. These are the condemned, those who have been sentenced to death in the arena. Some are criminals, murderers, arsonists, thieves. Others are prisoners of war. And yes, some might be Christians, though contrary to popular belief, there's little evidence that Christians were regularly executed in the Colosseum specifically for their faith. The condemned look terrified, as well they should. What awaits them is not a quick or merciful death. The crowd, which had been mostly good-natured until now, turns ugly. They shout insults and curses at the prisoners. These men represent threats to Roman order, Roman peace. Their punishment is meant to be a warning to others. You feel sick watching them. These men who know they're about to die painfully for the entertainment of the crowd. But you don't look away. No one does. The first group of prisoners is led to posts set up in the arena and tied there. Then, from beneath the floor, more trapdoors open. This time, lions emerge, lean and hungry. They've been starved to make them more aggressive. What happens next is brutal and swift. The crowd roars its approval, but you find yourself closing your eyes, unable to watch. The sounds are bad enough, the screams, the snarls, the wet, tearing noises. When you finally force yourself to look again, slaves are once more raking the sand, covering the evidence of what just happened. Not much of a stomach for it, eh? Your neighbour asks, not unkindly. Don't worry, the gladiators are coming up next. That's more like proper fighting. There's skill to it, Honour, not just butchery. You nod, grateful for the reassurance. The executions continue through midday, each more elaborate than the last. Some prisoners are forced to act out mythological deaths before being killed for real. Others are made to fight each other with weapons they don't know how to use. It's cruel, calculated, and the crowd eats it up. By the time the last of the condemned has been dispatched, the sun has moved past its highest point. There's a longer break now, as the arena is prepared for the main event. People stand and stretch, visit the latrines built into the outer ring of the Colosseum, buy more food and drink. The conversation grows loud again as everyone discusses what they've seen and what's to come. You use the opportunity to visit the latrine yourself, following the signs to the appropriate section for your class. The Roman latrine is a public affair, a long stone bench with holes cut into it, positioned over a constantly flowing water channel. There's no privacy, but at least it's relatively clean compared to the cesspits you're used to at home. As you return to your seat, the excitement in the air is palpable. The gladiatorial games are about to begin. The real reason most people came today. You settle back onto your hard stone seat, shifting to find a more comfortable position after hours of sitting. Your back aches and your legs are stiff, but you forget all that as another trumpet blast announces the start of the main event. A procession enters the arena, the gladiators in all their glory. They march in formation, their armour gleaming in the afternoon sun. Each type of gladiator is distinct. The heavily armoured Spectator with his smooth helmet and short sword, the Retiarius with his net and trident, the Thraex with his curved blade, the Mamillo with his fish-crested helmet. They are magnificent, their bodies honed through years of training. They approach the imperial box and raise their weapons in salute. Their voices ring out across the arena. Ave Imperator morituri te salutant. Hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you. The crowd goes wild and you find yourself cheering along with them. Despite everything you've seen today, there's something undeniably thrilling about this moment. These aren't condemned men being led to slaughter. These are trained warriors, athletes who have chosen this life. Many are slaves, yes, but some are free men who voluntarily signed contracts to become gladiators, drawn by the fame and fortune that success in the arena can bring. The gladiators take their positions paired off according to fighting styles that will make for the most interesting matches. The first pair steps forward while the others withdraw to the edges of the arena. A referee takes his position nearby, holding a long staff. He'll enforce the rules. Yes, there are rules, even here. Gladiatorial combat isn't the chaotic free-for-all that modern movies sometimes depict. It's closer to a highly dangerous sport with techniques, strategies, and codes of conduct. The referee gives the signal and the first match begins. The crowd falls relatively quiet, everyone intent on watching the skill and courage on display. These early matches are not usually to the death. They're meant to showcase technique and bravery. The gladiators circle each other, looking for openings, testing defenses. When they engage, it's in quick, violent bursts of action, metal scraping against metal, feet shuffling in the sand. Your neighbour points out small details you might have missed. How one gladiator feints to draw out his opponent, how another uses his shield not just for defence but as a weapon itself. You begin to see the art in what at first looked like simple brutality. The match ends when one gladiator manages to disarm the other and force him to the ground. The defeated man raises his index finger, pleading for mercy. The victor looks to the crowd, who roar their approval. This has been a good fight, and they want both men to live to fight another day. The emperor, following the will of the people, gives the signal for mercy. The defeated gladiator will live. More matches follow, each more elaborate than the last. As the afternoon wears on, the stakes get higher. The most famous gladiators are saved for the later bouts, and these fights sometimes do end in death, though not as often as you might think. A good gladiator is expensive to train and maintain. Killing them off regularly would be bad business. You find yourself completely absorbed in the spectacle now, calling out encouragement to your favourites, gasping when a particularly daring move succeeds or fails. The earlier horrors of the day fade as you lose yourself in the skill and drama of these contests. And then a murmur runs through the crowd. The final match of the day is about to begin, and one of the competitors is indeed Flammer, the famous Syrian. He enters the arena to thunderous applause, acknowledging the crowd with a raised trident. He fights as a retiarius, one of the most difficult but crowd-pleasing styles. His opponent is a Spectator, heavily armoured with a shield and sword. It's the classic matchup, the quick, lightly armoured retiarius trying to entangle his slower but better protected opponent. The crowd immediately divides, some cheering for Flammer, others for his opponent. Your neighbour is on his feet, shouting Flammer's name. You stand too, caught up in the excitement. The match begins, and it's immediately clear that you're watching two masters at work. Their movements are precise, economical, every step and gesture having a purpose. Flammer darts, it's in and out of range, trying to find an opening for his net, while the Spectator advances steadily, looking to close the distance where his sword would have the advantage. The crowd holds its breath as Flammer's net flies through the air and misses. Now he's at a disadvantage, armed only with his trident against the Spectator's sword and shield. He retreats, trying to recover his net while keeping his opponent at bay, but the Spectator is good. Very good. He presses his advantage, driving Flammer back toward the edge of the arena. For a moment, it looks like the Syrian champion might lose. The crowd gasps as the Spectator's sword slips past Flammer's guard, drawing a line of red across his arms. But Flammer doesn't panic. With a move so quick you almost miss it, he drops to the ground and rolls, coming up behind the Secutor. Before his opponent can turn, Flammer's trident is at his back. The crowd explodes. The Secutor drops his weapons, acknowledging defeat. Once again, the Emperor looks to the crowd for their judgment. The response is unanimous. Both men have fought with such skill and courage that they deserve to live. The Emperor gives the sign for mercy, and the gladiators salute each other before leaving the arena together, battered but alive. And with that, the day's games come to an end. The sun is lowering in the sky now, casting long shadows across the arena. People begin to gather their things, discussing the day's events as they prepare to leave. The exits will be crowded, everyone trying to leave at once. So many choose to linger, letting the crush subside before making their way out. You sit for a moment longer, taking it all in. The day has been a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement, horror, awe, disgust, admiration. You've seen the best and worst of Rome today, its brilliance and its brutality side by side. The Colosseum itself embodies this contradiction. A magnificent feat of engineering and artistry used for spectacles of death and suffering. As you finally stand to leave, legs stiff from hours of sitting on stone, you look once more at the arena below. Slaves are already at work, preparing it for tomorrow's games. The cycle will begin again. The hunts, the executions, the gladiators. This is Rome at its most Roman, a society that created both stunning beauty and stunning cruelty, often in the same breath. You follow the crowd toward the exit, the cool air of the vaulted passage a relief after hours in the sun. Outside, the streets are filled with people discussing the day's highlights, placing bets on tomorrow's matches, buying last-minute souvenirs. Life in Rome continues its bustling pace. As you walk home, the dying light turning the city to gold, you find yourself already anticipating the next games. Despite everything, you know you'll be back. There's something addictive about the Colosseum, about being part of that roaring crowd, about witnessing spectacle on such a grand scale. For better or worse, the games are the heart of Roman life, the place where the entire society comes together, where Rome shows itself to itself. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you've eaten little all day. Time to find some dinner, maybe one of the thermopolia, the fast food stands that dot the city, serving hot stew and wine to hungry Romans, then home to bed to rest your tired body and process all you've seen. Tomorrow will be another day in Rome, perhaps less dramatic than this one, but never boring. That's one thing you can say for life in the Empire. It's never, ever dull. The next morning arrives with the persistent crowing of roosters and the early calls of street vendors. Your muscles ache from yesterday's long hours on those hard stone seats, but there's an energy coursing through you too. Yesterday was just your first taste of the games. Today, you're determined to get an even better view, to understand more of what you're seeing. As you splash cold water on your face from the basin, you think about what your neighbour at the games told you before you parted ways. If you really want to see the Colosseum, get there early, walk around the whole thing before the crowds, and bring a cushion for your backside for Jupiter's sake. Good advice. You tear a chunk from yesterday's leftover bread, grab a small cloth bag with some food for later, and tuck a folded cushion under your arm. It's just a simple thing stuffed with wool scraps, but it'll make those stone seats feel a whole lot friendlier to your rear end. The streets are quieter this early in the morning. Shopkeepers are just setting up, slaves are emptying chamber pots, careful where you step, and the rich are still sleeping off last night's wine. It gives you a chance to really look at the Colosseum as you approach it, to appreciate the sheer scale of the place. It truly is massive. Rising nearly 15 stories high, it dominates this part of Rome. The outer wall has 3 tiers of arches, each decorated with columns in different styles. Doric on the bottom level, then Ionic, then Corinthian at the top. It's a masterpiece of engineering and design. A statement in stone of Rome's power and wealth, and to think it was built in just 8 to 10 years, mostly by Jewish slaves captured after the siege of Jerusalem. That's Rome for you, brilliant and brutal all at once. You notice something you missed yesterday in the crush of the crowd. Numbered markings above each archway. These correspond to the numbered tickets, helping people find their designated entrance. It's a clever system for managing the flow of 50,000 people. The Romans might be bloodthirsty, but you've got to hand it to them. They know how to organise a spectacle. As you circle the building, you see workers preparing for today's games. Carts laden with sand arrive to freshen up the arena floor. Slaves carry in props and scenery pieces. Animal handlers lead caged beasts toward the underground holding areas. It's like seeing backstage at a massive theatre production, which in a way it is. Your curiosity gets the better of you, and you follow one group of workers toward a service entrance. No one stops you. You're just another face in the busy morning preparations. You slip through an archway and find yourself in a corridor that slopes downward, leading beneath the arena. The temperature drops noticeably as you descend. The walls are rough stone here, not the polished marble of the public areas. The smell hits you next, a pungent mix of animal musk, human sweat, and something metallic that might be blood. Your nose wrinkles, but you press on, drawn by the sounds echoing up from below. Men shouting orders, animals growling, the clank of metal being moved. You emerge into a dimly lit space that stretches out in a complex network of corridors and rooms. This is the Hypogeum, the underground area beneath the Colosseum's floor. It's a hive of activity as workers prepare for today's shows. You press yourself against a wall, trying to stay out of the way while taking it all in. The Hypogeum is essentially a 2-level backstage area filled with cages for animals, rooms for gladiators to prepare, storage for props and scenery, and an elaborate system of lifts and pulleys. These mechanical devices can raise platforms through trapdoors in the arena floor, creating the special effects that so delight the crowd. Animals appearing as if from nowhere, scenery changing between events. You watch as a group of men test one of these lifts, loading it with weights to simulate the animals it will carry later. The wooden platform creaks as it rises slowly, pulled upward by ropes and counterweights. It's ingenious engineering, all designed to create surprise and wonder for the audience above. In one corner, you spot a group of men who must be gladiators, already preparing for today's matches. They're checking their equipment, helmets, shields, various weapons, while a trainer barks instructions. They don't look like the desperate slaves you might have expected. Some are laughing together, others are focused and serious. They're professionals, athletes in a deadly sport. A man in fine clothing, probably a lanista, a gladiator trainer and manager, moves among them, checking their readiness. The lanista owns these men, or at least owns their contracts, and he has a vested interest in their performance. A victorious gladiator brings glory and profit. A dead one is a lost investment. You're so absorbed in watching that you don't notice the overseer approaching until his shadow falls across you. You! What are you doing down here? This area is off limits to spectators. Your heart jumps into your throat as you turn to face a burly man with a scarred face and suspicious eyes. He's clearly someone used to giving orders and having them obeyed. I got lost, you stammer, which isn't entirely a lie. I was looking for the latrines. The man snorts, clearly not believing you, but also not overly concerned. Latrines are up top, through the main corridors. You shouldn't be down here. It's dangerous. One of the beasts could get loose, or you could get crushed by the lifting machinery. He gestures toward the exit. Go on, get back where you belong. The games will be starting soon enough and you can see everything from your seat. You nod quickly and turn to leave, grateful he didn't call for guards. As you climb back toward the public areas, your mind buzzes with what you've seen. The Colosseum isn't just an arena. It's a massive machine designed to create spectacle through hidden technology and careful choreography. The shows may be bloody and real, but they're also meticulously staged like violent theatre productions. By the time you emerge into the sunlight again, the crowd has begun to arrive. You join the flow of people heading toward the entrances, your ticket in hand. Today, you've decided to splurge a little and rented a cushion from one of the vendors outside. In addition to the small one you brought, your backside will thank you later. Finding your entrance is easier now that you understand the numbering system. As you pass through the cool, shadowed corridor, you hear the echoing voices of thousands of spectators already finding their seats. The acoustics in this building are remarkable. Even a whisper can carry surprisingly far in some spots. Today, you've managed to secure a slightly better seat, a bit lower down in the section reserved for ordinary citizens. You'll be able to see more clearly, though you'll also be more exposed to the sun as it rises higher in the sky. Trade-offs everywhere in life, right? You settle onto your cushions, much better than yesterday's bare stone, and look around. The arena below is being raked smooth, fresh sand spread evenly across its surface. Stagehands make final adjustments to various props and scenery pieces. In the Imperial box, attendants arrange cushions and prepare refreshments, though the Emperor hasn't arrived yet. The crowd around you is in a festive mood. People chat excitedly about yesterday's games and speculate about what today will bring. A young boy nearby is playing with a clay figurine of a gladiator, making it battle against an imaginary opponent. His father points out features of the arena to him, explaining how everything works. It's the Roman equivalent of a father taking his son to his first baseball game, a cultural tradition passed down. A vendor makes his way along your row, selling cups of watered wine. You buy one using a small copper coin. The wine is slightly sour, but it's wet and somewhat refreshing in the growing heat. Another vendor follows with a tray of snacks, nuts, dried fruits, small honey cakes. You buy a handful of almonds to munch on while waiting for the games to begin. First time here? Asks the woman sitting next to you today, a matronly figure in a simple but clean stola, the traditional dress of a Roman matron. Second day, you reply. I was here yesterday too. She nods approvingly. Good games yesterday. My husband and I never miss them when the Emperor hosts. I'm Livia, by the way. Nice to meet you, you say, giving your own name in return. You picked a good spot today, Livia says, gesturing to the seating area. Not too high up? Good view of the action, and we should get some shade from the velarium once they extend it. She points upward to where sailors are already preparing the massive awning system. Is it true that they sometimes flood the arena for naval battles? You ask, remembering something you've heard. Livia nods eagerly. The Naumachii, yes, though they don't do those often. Too complicated. They have to waterproof the whole arena floor and bring in enough water to float the ships. I saw one as a girl. Spectacular. They recreated the Battle of Salamis between the Greeks and Persians. Had dozens of small ships right here in the arena with hundreds of men fighting on them. Many drowned. She says this last part casually, as if discussing the weather. You're about to ask more when a fanfare of trumpets announces the arrival of the Emperor. The crowd rises to its feet, cheering as Emperor Titus enters the Imperial box with his entourage. He's dressed even more splendidly than yesterday, his purple-edged toga gleaming with gold embroidery. He acknowledges the crowd with a raised hand, and the roar that greets him is deafening. Once the emperor is seated, the day's events can begin. Another trumpet blast signals the start of the pompa, the opening parade. Through the Porta Triumphalis, the main gate, comes a procession of all who will perform today. Animal handlers leading exotic beasts on chains, hunters with their weapons, performers, musicians, and finally the gladiators themselves, their armour polished to a high shine. They circle the arena once, then stop before the imperial box for the traditional salute. Their voices ring out clear and strong. Ave Imperator morituri te salutant. The crowd cheers, and the emperor acknowledges them with a nod before giving the signal for the games to begin. Today's first event is something different, a demonstration of trained animals. A group of handlers enter with various beasts that have been taught to perform tricks. Monkeys dressed as soldiers that ride on goats, elephants that can balance on their hind legs, bears that dance to music. It's lighter entertainment meant to start the day on a less bloody note. Children in the crowd especially love this part, pointing and laughing at the animals' antics. You find yourself smiling too. There's something surreal about watching an elephant pick up a wreath with its trunk and place it on its trainer's head while thousands of people cheer. For a moment, the Colosseum feels less like a place of death and more like a place of wonder. But the mood shifts as the animal acts conclude and the hunters enter for the venaciones, the animal hunts. These are more serious, more violent. Today's hunters are bestiari, men specially trained to fight exotic animals. They're armed with spears, bows, and sometimes nets and whips. The first animals released are relatively harmless. Ostriches, gazelles, deer. The hunters demonstrate their skill by bringing them down cleanly with arrows or spears. It's impressive marksmanship, but not particularly dangerous work. Then come the more threatening beasts, wild boars with their vicious tusks, bulls with sharp horns, leopards and panthers that slink around the arena's edges, looking for an opening to attack. The hunters work in teams now, covering each other as they face these more dangerous opponents. The crowd reacts differently to each kill. A clean, skilled takedown of a charging boar earns appreciative applause. A hunter who shows fear or misses his target is met with jeers and catcalls. And when a panther manages to leap onto a hunter, clawing at his leather armour before he can drive his dagger into its heart, the crowd gasps, then roars its approval at his narrow escape. They brought those panthers all the way from Africa, Livia tells you during a brief lull. Can you imagine capturing them, putting them on ships, bringing them across the sea? Just for this moment, the empire is truly magnificent. You nod, understanding her pride. The logistics required to bring exotic animals from the far corners of the empire to Rome for a few minutes of entertainment is staggering. It's a display of Rome's reach, its wealth, its power over both nature and distant lands. The morning continues with more hunts, each featuring more dangerous animals. Bears from the forests of Germania, hyenas from Egypt, and finally the crowd favourite, lions. These massive cats with their thick manes and powerful jaws are the ultimate test for the bestiarii. They're brought up from below on the lifts, emerging through trapdoors in the arena floor to the thunderous approval of the spectators. The lion hunt is the most dramatic yet. These aren't half-starved beasts, but healthy, powerful animals in their prime. One hunter is caught by a swipe from a massive paw that tears through his leather greaves, leaving bloody gashes on his leg. He limps away while his companions distract the lion, eventually bringing it down with multiple spear thrusts. By midday, the sand of the arena is stained red in many places. Despite the slaves who rush out between events to rake it over, the heat has intensified, and you're grateful for the partial shade provided by the valerium above. You sip from a fresh cup of wine and eat some of the bread and cheese you brought, watching as the arena is prepared for the midday executions. These are the damnatio ad bestias, condemnations to the beasts. As yesterday, prisoners are led out in chains. Some are stoic, some weeping, some seem almost mad with fear. They're tied to stakes around the arena or simply released to run, though there's nowhere to escape to. Today's innovation is a recreated scene from mythology, the story of Actaeon, the hunter who saw the goddess Diana bathing and was turned into a stag, then torn apart by his own hunting dogs. A prisoner is dressed as a hunter, with crude antlers fixed to his head. Then, a pack of starved hunting dogs is released into the arena. What follows is grim and brutal. You look away for much of it, though the sounds alone are horrifying enough. The crowd's reaction is mixed. Some cheer and laugh, treating it as entertainment. Others watch in solemn silence, seeing it as justice being served. A few, like you, seem uncomfortable but don't leave. This is Rome, and this is how Rome deals with those who break its laws or threaten its order. When the executions finally end, there's a longer break to prepare for the afternoon's main event, the gladiatorial contests. People stand and stretch, visit the latrines, buy more food and drink. The conversation around you picks up again, deliberately turning away from what was just witness to anticipation of what's to come. "Have you placed any bets?" Livia asks, breaking the silence between you. You shake your head. "I wouldn't know who to bet on." She smiles knowingly. "My husband always bets on the retiari. He says they have the advantage with their reach, but I prefer the secutores, more protected, better chance of survival." She leans closer, lowering her voice. "I'll tell you a secret. See that man over there?" She discreetly points to a well-dressed man seated in the equestrian section. "That's Quintus Pompeius. He owns several of the gladiators fighting today, including Africanus, the Ethiopian. They say he's paid the referees to ensure favourable matchups for his men." You raise your eyebrows, intrigued by this glimpse into the politics and corruption behind the games. Of course there would be money changing hands, favouritism, fixed fights. The games might be presented as exhibitions of courage and skill, but they're also a business, with powerful men investing in gladiatorial troops and expecting returns on their investment. Is that common, you ask? Livia shrugs. Common enough. The Lanistae who train and manage the gladiators all have their patrons among the wealthy, and everyone wants to back a winner. She pats your arm. Don't look so shocked. It's just how things work. The fights are still real, the danger still genuine. It's just that some men have advantages. Before you can ask more, trumpets sound again, signalling the start of the afternoon's main event. The crowd settles back into their seats, the buzz of conversation dying down as all eyes turn to the arena below. The gladiators enter in pairs, already matched for their bouts. They're an impressive sight in their specialised armour, each type distinct and instantly recognisable to the knowledgeable crowd. First are the heavily armoured hoplomachii with their large round shields and spears. Modelled after Greek soldiers, they're paired against Thraces, who carry smaller curved shields, and seekers, forward curved short swords. Both types wear helmets that severely restrict their vision, adding to the challenge. Next come the Dimochairi, who fight with 2 swords and minimal armour, relying on speed and agility rather than protection. They're matched against the Provocatores, who have breastplates and rectangular shields. The crowd favourites follow, the Retiarii with their nets, tridents, and minimal armour, paired against the Secutores with their oval shields, short swords, and distinctive smooth helmets designed to prevent the net from catching on them. Finally, there are the Equites, mounted gladiators, who begin their fight on horseback with spears before dismounting to continue with swords. Each pair salutes the emperor, then takes their positions around the arena. At a signal from the editor, the official in charge of the games, today the emperor himself, the first matches begin simultaneously. The Colosseum erupts with noise as the crowd cheers for their favourites. You find yourself drawn to the match between a retiarius and Spectator happening nearest to your section. The contrast between the lightly armoured net fighter, nimble and quick, and the heavily protected swordsman, powerful but slower, makes for a fascinating contest of styles. The retiarius darts in and out of range, occasionally flicking his net toward the Spectator, but never fully committing to the throw. He's feeling out his opponent's reactions, looking for patterns, weaknesses. The Spectator advances steadily, his shield raised, trying to close the distance where his sword would be most effective. See how the retiarius keeps circling to the Spectator's left, Livia points out. That's because the Spectator's vision is more limited on that side due to his helmet. Clever. You nod, impressed by her knowledge. She clearly watches the games with a technical eye, understanding the strategies at play. Suddenly, the retiarius makes his move. His net flies through the air, but the Spectator raises his shield just in time. The net drapes over it, and for a moment the two men are linked by the cords. The retiarius pulls, trying to unbalance his opponent, while the Spectator plants his feet and resists. With a powerful jerk, the Spectator yanks the net toward him, pulling the retiarius off balance. The net fighter stumbles forward and the Spectator strikes with his sword, but the retiarius twists at the last moment, taking only a glancing blow across his unprotected shoulder. Blood flows, but it's not a serious wound. The crowd roars its approval. First blood has been drawn, but the match is far from over. The retiarius has lost his net, but he still has his trident, which he uses to keep the Spectator at bay while he retreats to recover his position. Around the arena, other matches play out with similar drama. A Thraex has his helmet knocked off by a powerful blow from a Hoplomachus's spear. An Equus is pulled from his horse by his opponent, crashing to the sand. Each moment of skill or courage is met with cheers, each mistake with groans or jeers. Your attention returns to the retiarius and Spectator as their match intensifies. The net fighter, having recovered from his earlier stumble, now presses forward aggressively, his trident jabbing at the Spectator's legs, trying to find a gap in the armour. The Spectator blocks most attacks with his shield, but he's being forced backward toward the arena wall. He's tiring, Livia comments, noting how the Spectator's shield drops slightly lower after each block. All that armour gets heavy after a while. Sure enough, the next thrust from the trident slips past the shield, puncturing the Spectator's thigh. He grunts in pain but doesn't fall, instead swinging his sword in a desperate counterattack. The blade catches the retiarius across the chest, not deep but enough to draw another line of blood. Both men are wounded now, both tiring. The crowd is on its feet, shouting encouragement to their favoured fighter. The match has gone on longer than most, a testament to the skill of both gladiators. Finally, the Spectator makes a crucial mistake. Lunging forward, he overextends, his weight carrying him past his opponent. The retiarius spins around and drives the butt end of his trident into the back of the Spectator's knee. The joint buckles and the armoured man crashes to the sand. Before he can rise, the retiarius is on him, pressing the points of his trident against the fallen man's throat. The Spectator, knowing he's beaten, raises his index finger in the signal for missio, mercy. The retiarius looks to the emperor, who in turn looks to the crowd. The spectators wave their handkerchiefs and shout, "Mite!" Let him go. This has been an excellent fight, and both men have shown skill and courage. The emperor extends his hand, thumb horizontal, the signal for mercy. The retiarius withdraws his trident and helps his opponent to his feet. They salute each other, then the emperor, before limping from the arena to the applause of the crowd. Both will live to fight another day. That's how it usually ends, Livia tells you. Contrary to what many think, most gladiatorial combats didn't end in death. A good gladiator might fight dozens of matches over his career. They're too valuable to kill off regularly. You nod, somewhat relieved. It's still a brutal sport, but there's more nuance to it than you initially thought. There's skill, strategy, even a kind of honour in how the men fight and how the crowd judges their performance. The matches continue throughout the afternoon, each with its own drama and excitement. Some end quickly, others drag on. Some gladiators show extraordinary skill, others seem outmatched but fight bravely anyway. The crowd responds to each moment, creating a collective experience that sweeps you along with it. By late afternoon, as the sun begins its descent, the final match of the day is announced. This is the Primus, the main event, featuring the most famous and skilled gladiators. Today, it's a contest between Africanus, the Ethiopian fighter owned by Quintus Pompeius, who Livia pointed out earlier, and Gallus, a Gallic fighter who has won his last 8 matches. Both men are fighting as myrmiones with similar equipment, large rectangular shields, short swords, helmets with fish crest decorations, arm guards and leg greaves. It will be a contest of pure skill and strength, with neither having an equipment advantage. The crowd falls relatively quiet as the two champions take their positions. Even from your seat, you can sense the tension between them, the focused intensity. These aren't desperate slaves fighting against their will. These are professionals at the peak of their abilities, and there's pride at stake here as well as survival. At the signal, they begin circling each other, shields raised, swords at the ready. Neither rushes in. They're cautious, respectful of each other's abilities. The crowd grows restless. Someone shouts for them to fight, but the gladiators ignore the pressure, each waiting for the right moment. Gallus strikes first, a testing blow against Africanus's shield. The Ethiopian responds with a similar move. They're gauging each other's strength, reactions, style. More blows follow, most blocked by shields or armour, a few drawing slight wounds. The sand beneath their feet is kicked up as they manoeuvre, creating a small dust cloud around them. The fight intensifies as both men begin to take more risks, looking for the opening that will decide the match. Swords clash against shields, metal scrapes against metal, sweat pours down their bodies, making the leather straps of their armour slick and the handles of their swords harder to grip. Africanus lands a solid blow that dents Gallus's helmet, momentarily stunning the Gaul. The crowd gasps, sensing a turning point, but Gallus recovers quickly, ducking under Africanus's next swing and driving his shoulder into the Ethiopian's shield, knocking him back several steps. As Africanus stumbles, Gallus presses his advantage, raining blows that the Ethiopian can only partially block. One cuts across his arm, another glances off his helmet. Africanus is forced to one knee, his shield barely holding off Gallus's assault. The crowd is on its feet now, the noise deafening. Pompeius, the Ethiopian's owner, looks worried, already calculating his financial loss if his champion falls. But Africanus isn't finished yet. As Gallus draws back for a powerful swing, Africanus surges upward from his kneeling position, driving the boss of his shield into the Gaul's midsection. The air leaves Gallus's lungs in a rush, and he staggers backward. Africanus follows through, his sword finding a gap in the Gaul's armour at the shoulder joint. Blood spurts, and Gallus drops his shield, his arm suddenly useless. He switches his sword to his left hand, a difficult transition that few gladiators master, and continues fighting, but he's clearly at a severe disadvantage now. The end comes quickly after that. Africanus presses forward relentlessly, and though Gallus fights valiantly with his offhand, he's eventually disarmed and driven to the ground. Africanus stands over him, sword raised for the final blow, but Gallus raises his finger for mercy. Before the blade can fall, all eyes turn to the Emperor. Titus looks to the crowd, gauging their reaction. The spectators are divided. Some call for mercy. Gallus fought well despite his injury. Others, including many who likely bet on Africanus, call for death to complete their champion's victory. The Emperor considers, then extends his hand with thumb pointed downward, the signal for death. The crowd roars, some in approval, others in disappointment. Gallus accepts his fate with dignity. He straightens his neck, looking up at his opponent without fear. Africanus nods once in respect, then delivers the fatal thrust cleanly and quickly. Gallus's body goes limp, his blood soaking into the sand. The Ethiopian steps back, salutes the Emperor, then leaves the arena to thunderous applause from his supporters. You feel a hollowness in your stomach. Despite everything you've seen today, this final death still affects you, perhaps because it seems unnecessary. Gallus had fought well, had shown courage, but that's Rome. Entertainment and death, beauty and brutality, all mixed together in a complex spectacle that defies simple judgment. As attendants enter to remove Gallus's body, Livia sighs beside you. A shame. I had a small bet on the Gaul, she shrugs philosophically. That's the risk with gambling, and with life in the arena. The day's games are concluded with a final ceremony. The victorious gladiators return to the arena to receive their prizes, palm branches symbolising victory, and for some, purses of gold coins. Africanus, as the champion of the Primus, receives the largest reward, presented by the Emperor himself. The crowd begins to disperse, filing out through the numerous exits. You sit for a moment longer, taking in the scene one last time. The blood-stained sand, the tired but triumphant gladiators, the Emperor in his finery, the magnificent architecture of the Colosseum itself. It's been another day of extremes, of skill and savagery, of engineering marvels and brutal entertainment, of humanity at its most cultured and its most primal. The Colosseum embodies all these contradictions, just as Rome itself does. As you finally stand to leave, legs stiff from another day on the stone seats, despite your cushions, you find yourself wondering about the lives behind the spectacle, the gladiators who train for years knowing they might die for entertainment, the animals captured from distant lands only to be slaughtered in the arena, the condemned prisoners whose deaths are transformed into mythological reenactments. You follow the crowd toward the exits, joining the river of humanity flowing out of the amphitheatre. The late afternoon sun slants through the arches, casting long shadows across the stone corridors. The conversations around you are animated, people already discussing their favourite moments from today's games, debating which gladiator showed the most skill, which animal was the most fearsome. Outside, the streets are filled with the post-games crowd, a festive atmosphere prevailing. Vendors do a brisk business selling food, drink and souvenirs to people still buzzing with excitement from the day's events. Children play at being gladiators, using sticks for swords and bits of broken pottery for shields. You pause to buy a small clay lamp shaped like a gladiator from one of the vendors, a memento of your days at the games. As the man wraps it in a scrap of cloth for you, you ask him if he attends the games often. "Every chance I get," he says with a grin, revealing several missing teeth. "Been watching the games since I was a boy. Nothing like it in the world, is there? The glory of Rome, right there in the arena." He hands you the wrapped lamp. "Come back tomorrow. They say they're bringing in a rhinoceros from Africa. Never been seen in Rome before." You thank him and continue on your way, the wrapped lamp tucked safely in your bag. Tomorrow? Maybe. The games are addictive, there's no denying that. Despite the blood, despite the death, there's something compelling about the spectacle, about being part of that roaring crowd, about witnessing the extremes of human experience. This is Rome, magnificent and monstrous, civilized and savage, and the Colosseum is its beating heart, pumping the lifeblood of spectacle through the veins of the empire. For better or worse, it's a testament to what humans can build and what they can become, both the heights and the depths. As you make your way home through the gathering dusk, the sounds of the crowd still echoing in your ears, you know you'll carry these days with you forever, your own small part in the eternal story of Rome and its Colosseum. Sleep comes easily that night, your body exhausted from 2 days of sitting on stone seats, your mind still processing everything you've witnessed. Your dreams are filled with gladiators and lions, with cheering crowds and the glint of sunlight on polished armour. You wake with a sense of purpose. 2 days at the games have piqued your curiosity about what happens behind the scenes. The glimpse you caught of the hypogym yesterday has left you wanting to know more about how the spectacles are created, how the gladiators live, how this massive entertainment machine operates. Instead of heading directly to the Colosseum this morning, you set out for another destination, the Ludus Magnus, the largest gladiatorial training school in Rome. It's located just east of the Colosseum, connected to the amphitheatre by an underground passage so that gladiators can move directly from their training ground to the arena without being seen by the public. The morning air is cool against your face as you walk through streets already busy with the day's commerce. Bakers sell fresh bread, farmers bring produce from the countryside, craftsmen open their workshops. Rome never truly sleeps. It merely shifts from one kind of activity to another as the hours pass. The Ludus Magnus comes into view as you round a corner, a large rectangular building with a central courtyard surrounded by cells and training areas. It's not as impressive as the Colosseum itself, but it's substantial, a testament to the resources Rome devotes to its bloody entertainment. You're not sure if you'll be allowed inside. These places aren't typically open to the public, but you're hoping to at least get a glimpse of the training in progress. As you approach, you see that one side of the building has a raised viewing platform where a small crowd has gathered. Perfect. Joining the onlookers, you find yourself with a clear view into the central courtyard, which has been designed as a miniature version of the Colosseum's arena. Sand covers the ground and wooden training equipment is arranged around the edges. In the centre, pairs of men are engaged in various forms of combat practice. These must be the gladiators preparing for future games. They're not in full armour, but wear practice gear, lighter versions of their fighting equipment. Some work with wooden swords against straw dummies, others spar with each other under the watchful eyes of trainers who shout instructions and occasionally step in to demonstrate a technique. "First time watching the training?" asks a man standing next to you, noticing your fascinated expression. You nod, not taking your eyes off the scene below. "I come here most mornings," he says. "More interesting than the actual games sometimes. Here you see the real work, the skill being honed. Those men down there have been training for years. Are they all slaves, you ask, genuinely curious about the men whose lives are spent preparing for the arena?" "Most, but not all," the man replies. "See that one there with the red headband? That's Valerius. He's a free man who signed a contract, an octoratus, swore an oath to be burned, bound, beaten, and killed by the sword if he doesn't follow the Lannister's orders. Crazy if you ask me, but the money's good if you survive, and the women," he makes a crude gesture. "Gladiators are celebrities. Some women go wild for them." You look more closely at Valerius. He moves with confidence, his muscles well defined from years of training. Currently, he's practicing with a wooden sword and shield, his movements precise and economical. Nothing flashy, just effective technique repeated until it becomes instinct. What about that big one? You ask, pointing to a particularly massive man working with a trainer in another part of the courtyard. Ah, that's Niger, captured in some battle in Africa. He's a Dimachorus, fights with 2 swords. Terrifying to face, they say, but not as skilled as he could be, relies too much on strength and aggression. Your informative neighbour seems to know each gladiator by name and reputation. As you watch, you begin to appreciate the complex system that produces these fighters. It's not just about throwing men into an arena with weapons. It's a sophisticated training program that combines physical conditioning, technical skill, psychological preparation, and tactical thinking. The men below aren't just learning to swing swords, they're learning to read opponents, to manage fear, to fight strategically despite the chaos of combat. The trainers are clearly experienced. Many are former gladiators themselves who survived their fighting days and now pass on their knowledge. They're harsh but not needlessly cruel. There's a professionalism to the whole operation that surprises you. What do they eat? You ask, curious about how these fighting men are maintained. The gladiator diet? Mostly barley, beans and vegetables. They call them barley men for a reason. Builds a layer of fat to protect against cuts without slowing them down too much. They get meat sometimes, but not as much as you'd think. And they eat just 1 good meal a day in the evening after training. And they live here. You gesture to the cells visible around the perimeter of the courtyard. Those who are slaves, yes. The free men can come and go, though they still train daily. The cells aren't as bad as they look. Basic but clean, better than what most poor Romans have. They get regular medical care too. A wounded gladiator is a useless gladiator. You continue watching, fascinated by this glimpse into the lives of the men you've seen fighting in the arena. They're both more and less than the mythic figures they appear to be during the games. More human, more skilled, less like the savage beasts the crowd sometimes treats them as. After a while, a shout from one of the trainers signals a change in the training routine. The gladiators pair up for practice fights using wooden weapons. The matches are intense but controlled, with trainers stepping in whenever a technique needs correction or tempers flare too high. They save the real fighting for the arena, your neighbour explains. Can't afford to have them seriously injuring each other during practice. A good gladiator represents a huge investment. Years of training, feeding, housing, medical care. The Lannister wants a return on that investment, which means keeping his men alive and winning in the arena. This economic reality behind the games adds another layer to your understanding. The blood sports aren't just about Rome's appetite for violent entertainment. They're a business with investors, managers, and assets. The gladiators are valuable commodities, their lives worth protecting right up until the moment they step into the Colosseum, where their death might be more profitable than their survival. The complexity of it all is fascinating, the contradictions quintessentially Roman, a highly organised professional system dedicated to producing spectacular violence, men treated simultaneously as valuable assets and disposable entertainment, training that is both brutally demanding and carefully protective of its subjects. As the morning progresses, more spectators gather on the viewing platform. Some appear to be wealthy Romans checking on fighters they've bet on or invested in. Others are clearly fans, pointing excitedly when they recognise a favourite gladiator. A few women in fine clothing giggle behind veils as they watch the muscled men train, confirming what your neighbour said about gladiators' appeal. Look, they're bringing out the new recruits. Your neighbour points to a group of men being led into the courtyard. Unlike the trained gladiators, these men look uncertain, some defiant, others scared. They're a mixed group. Some appear to be prisoners of war with foreign features, others likely criminals condemned to the arena rather than execution, a few perhaps desperate men who have sold themselves into this life. A trainer barks orders, and the recruits are paired with more experienced gladiators who begin showing them basic stances and movements. It's the first step in a long process that will either turn these men into arena fighters or see them die in training. Most won't make it, your neighbour comments, seeing your interest in the new recruits. Training is almost as dangerous as the arena for beginners. Break a leg, get an infection, can't keep up with the regimen, plenty of ways to die before you ever face your first real opponent. You watch a bit longer until your legs grow tired from standing. The training will continue all day, you're told, with different groups rotating through various exercises. It's relentless, a machine that produces gladiators the way other Roman institutions produce soldiers, administrators, or roads. Thanking your informative neighbour, you depart the Ludus Magnus with a new perspective on the games. The spectacles at the Colosseum are just the visible tip of a massive system that extends throughout the empire, capturing animals in distant provinces, training fighters in schools like this one, managing the logistics of bringing it all together for the entertainment of Rome. Instead of heading directly to the Colosseum for today's games, you decide to explore another aspect of Rome's entertainment culture. Near the training school is a small thermopolium, a fast food stand, popular with gladiator enthusiasts. Perhaps you can learn more there while getting something to eat. The thermopolium is busy, its counters embedded with large clay pots containing various hot foods. The smell is enticing. Spiced meat, cooked vegetables, fresh bread. You order a simple meal of stewed lentils and pork, along with a cup of wine, then find a spot at one of the small tables. Near you, a group of men are engaged in animated